floods, drought, everything is going to get worse. So it is too little too late. It is too little too late. We're losing the battle. The global south is still trying to recover from colonization, but colonization has not ended yet. We haven't moved an inch. More than 3/4 of our energy still comes from fossil fuels.
Creating a warm and engaging narrative for your podcast, consider Great Tell Me as a suggestion that combines an upbeat and inviting spirit without any background music. Welcome to Tangelic Talks, your go-to podcast from Tangelic, where we dive into the vibrant world of clean energy, development, sustainability, and climate change in Africa. We bring you inspiring stories, insightful discussions, and groundbreaking innovations from the continent making waves in the global community. Tune in and join the conversation toward a brighter, greener future. Let's get started.
Welcome to Tangelic Talks, a podcast at the intersection of energy, equity, and empowerment with your co-host Victoria Cornelio and myself, Jensen Cummings. In today's episode, we find out if it's too little, too late on climate change with Dr. Ioannis Tsipouridis. Dr. Tsipouridis is a pioneer of renewable energy. He's an activist, a professor with over 45 years of global experience, from building Greece's first wind and solar installations to advising climate strategy across sub-Saharan Africa. A vocal advocate for immediate climate action and fossil fuel phase-out, he currently leads renewable initiatives in Kenya. Dr. Tsipouridis, thanks for being with us.
Welcome.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
All right, so there's so many directions we could take this conversation because 45 years of experience, you've done so much, you've been at the leading edge for so long. But I want to maybe go all the way back. What was the spark that got you interested to getting on this path of renewable energy? Where did that start for you?
I will attribute it to Greenpeace.
Oh.
There was one of those cartoons by Greenpeace. I don't know if you've seen it. I still have it in one of my email accounts. So there is this guy sitting behind the desk with a big cigar, and he says, "You want fuel? We own the wells. You want nuclear? We own uranium. You want solar? We own solar is not working." So that worked for me.
Wow.
So I decided, I'm a chemical engineer. My first degree is chemical engineering, and my future was into fossil fuels, and that was a prospect that I really did not like so much. So I was open to stimuli. I read the book by Schumacher, Small is Beautiful. I read the book by Alvin Toffler, The Future Shock. And then this Greenpeace activist, and that changed my mind. And then I turned into solar energy. I did my PhD in solar energy, started in 1978, and never looked back at fossil fuels. And still, I don't want to look at them.
Mm.
That's amazing. And that's so formative. I think it's really hard to pinpoint a time, and you even have a visual for the time that you changed your mind. And you chose solar at a time where renewables weren't part of the mainstream conversation. So how did you see its potential before most people did?
Well, it's amazing. People already knew about solar. I mean, scientists, they knew the capacity that solar had. I mean, even then, there was a graphic showing that a dot in the Sahara Desert could satisfy the needs of a planet of 10 billion people with USA consumption. And that really, grabs your imagination. So it's okay, it's there. We know we cannot take it all at once, but the potential is there. So why not do it?
Yeah. And I can imagine there were many challenges.
And this is it still holds true. Let me
Oh.
the latest narrative from solar is that every 1 hour enough energy comes to the planet to power all our needs for a whole year. So the capacity is enormous.
Okay,
So it's there for everybody.
so why can't we do it? Where's the challenge? What's holding us back?
First of all, technically, we cannot do such a huge monstrosity. Okay, we have to go in smaller plants. We can do it. What's holding us back? The market is holding us back.
Uh,
People like Trump are holding us back. People who don't like renewables are holding us back. Fossil fuels are holding us back. Every year, fossil fuel industries receive subsidies of up to $7 trillion. $7 trillion.
Yeah.
And this is not something that's said by activists or anarchists or terrorists. It's said by the IMF,
Mm.
the horse's mouth. They say it. So if you get on top of your profits, you get $7 trillion in subsidies. Would you stop pumping oil? Of course, it's drill, baby, drill. There's so much money there.
Yeah.
And to think these companies are basically on welfare, and then we turn around and people who are on welfare are the problem, but these companies and subsidies are welfare that we're paying for. I mentioned it in the open. I said too little, too late. Very daunting title of this episode, but it's something that you said. So I'm interested in that because I can tell you still have excitements and optimism, yet you're also looking through a lens of saying we're doing too little, too late potentially. So what are the most urgent actions that we can and should be taking today, either from a global policy standpoint, from commerce and business, from subsidies, or from an individual? How do you think about kind of the actions we need to be taking?
The action is needed is global. I mean, we have to stop bringing on the guilt to the individual. You didn't pick up your Coca-Cola, sorry, I shouldn't say your soda can and put it in. No, no. The action needed is global. And fossil fuels have to stop pumping yesterday. Okay? The planet is already has surpassed the 1.5, the holy grail of the climate movement, 1.5 limit. We surpassed that. 2024 as a year was above 1.5. Of course, to really make it, it has to be a 10-year period, but 2024 was there. There was a gallop among leading climate scientists, a lot of them. The majority agreed, they said that the temperature will stop at 2.5 and above. 2.5 is hell on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And we're continuing to pump oil, fossil gas, fossil oil, fossil coal. We're bringing CO2 trapped in the caves of our planet millions of years ago, and we're adding it to the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide lasts for at least 1,000 years. So we're just adding, nothing is removed.
Yeah.
So CO2 concentration continues to rise, temperature continues to rise. Uh, People in Texas were I can't really find words to describe what happened in Texas. Fires in the whole of Mediterranean, floods, drought, everything is going to get worse. So it is too little too late. It is too little too late. We're losing the battle unless we act yesterday. But you see, the COP30 is in a few months. Let's talk again after COP30. You'll see the compromises that will be made there. So
And what do we say to those who argue you can't decouple from fossil fuels? It's built into our infrastructure at every level. How do we then flip that switch to renewables when we're not at that scale?
let's look at it on the technological aspect and not the funding. Funding is a play game. They can do it if they want. This question is valid. If you ask me this question today, is valid. We cannot do it tomorrow.
Fair.
But because I'm as old as I look, this question has been thrown at me 40 years ago, and 30 years ago, and 20 years ago. If we had started then, it would have been done by now. Okay? So if we start today, it will be done in 10 years. But if we never start, it will never be done. The climate crisis is here and is here to stay. It's not COVID. We're not waiting for an injection to work it out of our system. It's going to stay for decades. The longer we take the measures, the more decades it would last.
Yeah.
You were at COP21. You mentioned COP30 coming up. Connect the dots for us. What happened there, and especially the United States not being a part of that conversation. The conversations that's coming up at COP30. How are you connecting those dots? What do you see happening? What has not happened? What needs to happen coming out of that COP30 conversation?
COP21, as everybody knows, is a really emblematic COP. It really gave hope, and it was thanks to Barack. He really took the lead there. Let me say that in the previous COP, he failed to see what he should have done, but he did it. In Denmark, he failed, but in Paris, he did it. Great. If I could show you a graph how CO2 keeps increasing with every COP.
It's abysmal.
Nothing changes. CO2 continues to increase, temperature continues to increase. We go to COPs, we greet each other, we drink our wine. There are scientists who really try their best. But in every COP, there are more fossil fuel lobbyists than actual delegates. They're in their thousands, two and three thousands. They're there to make a dent in people's belief, in people's how strong they feel about pursuing a cause. So really, is everything is wishful thinking. Oh, we will, we shall. We never do. Okay, everything is done too little, too late.
Yeah. And there's a lot of systemic issues that just cannot, if we were able to tackle them, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, right? We would have solved it by now. But back in 1991, if that's correct, you co founded the Wind Energy Association of Greece.
Yes.
And I can imagine you were having a lot of these conversations back then as well. So, what were the biggest challenges and opportunities in advocating for wind power at that time?
Well, we formed the association, but wind power had started already 6, 7 years ago before that. So wind energy was already advancing in Greece. Yeah, I was an engineer at the Public Power Corporation of Greece. We had already installed a number of wind turbines, even small wind parks, we were very proud of. So it was actually the events that forced the formation of the association. It was mostly engineers and scientists from the universities. It was a great event, and we kept it. We're still there. It's still there. The association. I'm not there, but the association is there. The challenges came later when we saw that we cannot really do as much as we wanted. Bureaucracy and regulations and bureaucracy. Something was always holding back. They are not going to relinquish the first spot that they have, not so easily. There is a lot of money to be lost, so they will continue to fight. So they delayed the development. So you ask the question, but we cannot really replace fossil fuels tomorrow. Of course we can. But if we had started in 1991, today would have been a 100 renewable world. It's possible. Technically, it's possible.
And when you're in these rooms and you're having these conversations, how do you keep it together? Because it sounds really like you have the data, you have the graphs, you have everything, everything's there, and people are looking you dead in the eyes. You, a professional that knows exactly what you're talking about, saying, "Oh no, sorry, we can't do this right now."
Well, it happens. I mean, I don't want to really use USA examples, but a lot of the people these days talking in USA that really don't know what they're saying, but people believe them. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, half of the cabinet is Fox News spokesman. So I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, uh, I saw a video for a congressman was saying, "What are you talking about melting glaciers? When my ice cubes melts in my drink, the water does not overflow." Of course, it doesn't. That's not a glacier. Glacier is on the mountain. It's not that you can find the video. I mean, science is missing in the discussion. Is hearsay, is fake news, is influencers, is social media, social media, social media. I think science has lost that battle.
Yeah.
He has lost it.
But a lot of people feel put off by science, either by the jargon or it's hard to understand the white papers, the concept notes. It's so dry, it's so boring. So, how do we help people come in and actually understand what is being said? Because there's always, the academic elite and all this stuff. How do we bring people in? How do we get them to understand?
That's a good point, but I think a lot of scientists are doing their best to make it more easily understandable. The narrative is more simple and more interesting, and actually is more scary. I mean, it is scary nowadays. The world my children and my grandchildren are going to live in is going to be completely different, and in the end, there's going to be a social breakdown. So the video I was watching for preparedness has some valid points. There will be a social breakdown. Society cannot withstand all these pressures. I think the problem is that we have not learned people to love education and to pay attention to education, to love books. Now, these days, this is totally lost. Nobody reads a book. I mean, it's we all have a screen in front of us and we enjoy it. So,
Yeah.
no, I'm not. I'm not. I don't. I may sound pessimistic. I'm not pessimistic. Seeing the young students here, they're so passionate, so active. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to get into. I like your point about, yeah, the white papers might be boring, but if you're interested and passionate, you will try to read them and understand them, right? It's a two-way street. Scientists are trying to make it accessible, we're trying to understand it, but you're at this intersection, right? You work with students, you're at the university. How do you communicate to this younger generation? How do you tell them from your experiences how they can break into this sector and maybe hopefully make a difference?
First of all, I talk to them the way I talk to you. First of all, okay.
Perfect.
Of course, I have presentations with lots of data, lots of science is the only thing we have. And science does not leave any room for doubt. Actually, it does, because science never says 100%. Science says there is 79% possibility this will happen, or 89%, or 39. But what it says is there, okay? And unfortunately, that battle was lost when we failed to teach people to believe in science and try to understand science. It's a little late on that, but the new generation, I think a lot of young people are interested in what's happening. They realize that climate crisis is upon them, and they will demand solutions. And I hope they will demand it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And what drove you to Kenya then? How come you are teaching there and living there and getting involved in, I would imagine, the renewable energy sector there?
My fields are renewable energy and climate science or climate talks. I was given a contract by a contractor to study the renewable energy market in sub-Saharan Africa in 1918, in the 2018. So I came, I did my study. Then COVID came, so they stopped the contract. But I love the country. I was, I met the universities, I got invitations, so I stayed on. So I'm here.
Yeah. And do you see a different way that people are talking about renewables in, for example, sub-Saharan Africa compared to maybe in Greece and Europe, in the quote unquote Western world? Is there a difference in the way we speak about it?
Yes, here they understand better the small applications, the mini grid, the microgrid, the rural applications, whereas in Europe we're really looking at the big plants. Of course, that is a big movement with solar, roof solar and all that. But the market players are looking at big plants, and we need big plants. There's no question about it. I mean, we have to be able to cover 100% of the electricity, and not only electricity. Yeah, but we're very far from that. If I can give you a piece of information here, can I?
Please.
Yes, please.
Okay. There is an indicator called total final energy consumption. Total final energy consumption is how much energy the planet, our system, uses every year, and what sources are used for that energy to be produced. 15 years ago, 79% was fossil fuels. 10 years ago, 80% was fossil fuels. 2 years ago, 79% is still fossil fuels. We haven't moved an inch. More than three quarters of our energy still comes from fossil fuels. So, how do you upturn this? How do you overturn this? Remember the trillions of subsidies.
Of course. But what gives you hope to stay in this sector? Because you've been working in renewables for 45 years. So, what is the thing that keeps telling you it's worth the cost, it's worth doing it? Do you have any experiences or case studies you can share with us where you've seen the tangible impacts?
Because it's the only logical solution, renewables. I don't want to sound like a crusader, but it's the only logical solution. It's the most environmentally friendly. Everybody has renewables. You don't need wars to wage wars to secure your sources. Wind flows over Iran, and after Iran, it flows over Israel, and then it comes down to Kenya. It's the same. Everybody has renewable energy. It's abundant, it's inexhaustible, it's cheap. It doesn't cause, it's the most environmentally friendly. The environmental disadvantages are minute, but you need energy, you have to have something. It's the only logical solution, and it can give 100%. It can, it will. So, isn't that reason enough to go after it?
I absolutely love the passion that you have for this. I can imagine being in one of your lectures like this, feeling inspired and wanting to take up this daunting task. You mentioned something, kind of the juxtaposition of maybe the approach when it comes to, let's say, the global north versus the global south. More specifically, we mentioned Europe and talking about Kenya, the rural application. And I often think that the bigger the vision, the smaller the first step needs to be. And so there's a little bit of how do we learn from the global south in the global north in the approach of making it very simple, very grassroots, very attainable and achievable on the ground so that that can scale up to the level of being global. Can we flip that paradigm in some way? Do you have insights there?
I think this race had started long ago, so we can't really turn it back and start again. I mean, what you are asking really would mean going back again. Uh, Especially in Europe, that people are very well aware of what renewables can do. There are still some people who are fighting it, but the majority. I'm talking about people, though, not the market. The market is a completely different space, ecospace.
Yeah.
Uh, Even in the United States, I mean, take California. California has done amazingly in solar and wind. They were the leaders. They were always were. So there are the global south. The global south is still trying to recover from colonization, but colonization has not ended yet. So the global south is really has the will, has the passion, but it does not have the means to act upon them. Okay, money makes the world go round. Da da da. So most of the countries are in debt. So how can they really dictate their own energy policies if you don't have money? They have the resources. The resources are here, more than enough. Especially Kenya, it's a paradise of renewable. Kenya's electricity grid is 95% renewable electricity. 95% renewable. They have huge geothermal energy, which is amazing. 95%, the electricity grid. But heating, cooling, and transportation is all fossil fuels.
Uh,
Yeah. No, and you're right. That dependency is still there. And one of the things we hear a lot is the just transition, and that we need to transition slowly so we don't leave people behind, and the social equity that comes with the just transition and things like that. What do you think of that? Because if it were up to you, we would have started yesterday, right? How do we make sure that our solutions are also equitable?
The people are already behind. I mean, we're not going to leave them behind. They're already far behind. They were behind. I think I'll say it again. Renewables have a democratic character, if I can use that word. Okay, you can take a small panel, install it on a rural hut, and the grandfather there can have enough electricity for his television to power even his smartphone and talk to his grandchildren. It can be that you cannot do that easily with fossil fuels. Renewables can really bring everybody together. Okay, but you need another system. I mean, I don't want to talk about the market, but the market is really is an entity, a state on its own. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big one. And we talked about COP earlier, and this COP is all about climate finances. And we just talked about how being in debt and all these bonds and things hold you back from being able to do things. So, is there a better finance mechanism that we could be looking at, or are we kind of stuck?
Definitely there is, and that finance mechanism has been in the brewing for 35 years. I think it was initiated in Los Angeles, but I'm not quite sure on that. Don't take me for granted. We're talking about the loss and damage fund. The loss and damage fund is something simple. You take a stone, you throw it at my car window, you break it, you have to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
So you guys at the global north create all this havoc with the climate. I pay for it. I lose my cattle, I lose my hat, I lose my roads, I lose my cultivation. Somebody has to pay me.
Yeah.
Nobody in the north accepts liability for those things, but the movement is growing. I'm proud to say I'm a member of that Los Sentamas collaboration group, and they have managed to put it on the table. It's now being discussed officially. They calculated the amount of money needed is 1.3 trillion. The developed countries are really scared away from that. Of course, they have not agreed, but that's where the money comes from for countries in sub-Saharan Africa. It can come from loss and damage fund. Great people working there. Great people working there.
And it took a lot to operationalize it. Is that how you say it? Because I think it was in the works for like 20 years, and everyone just talking about like, oh, these are just climate reparations. Why would we do that? Blah 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 blah.
Exactly. At COP27 in Egypt, it was accepted for discussion in the agenda. That was the first time it was officially discussed, the COP27.
It's crazy.
That's how advanced we are.
It finally made it on the docket. You mentioned at COP how there's so many more lobbyists than there are, attendees, contributors, and I'm interested. We've been talking a lot this season, Victoria and I, about greenwashing, how difficult it is even at a policy level to understand what is and is not the reality of this space we're in. And you get all the way down to the Coca-Cola can, as you mentioned, it's a near impossibility. And the guilt trip that happens through that entire top-down modality. And so the greenwashing of it, how do we look at these issues and the potential and the conversations that are happening and know what's real and what's greenwashing?
Well, uh, first of all, washing is a technique used since advertisements were introduced into our lives. Every company, every supermarket, they live, they breathe and live for our benefit. They don't sleep at night trying to make things cheaper and better for us. Okay. The same is with greenwashing. A lot of people talk green and they do black. We can point out and say, name and shame. We can tell them, but if you have social media and you have influencers who say, "Wow, this oil company is doing great," what who is gonna listen to Granddad? So I mean, greenwashing is there. Greenwashing is definitely there. It's a very big problem. It's a very big problem.
Yeah, we're gonna listen to you. We talk about cool uncle. We need to have cool grandpa energy, where it's not so much about, again, the white paper and everything. The science is there, but it's about connecting on a human level. So again, we appreciate that you find a really good balance between the facts, the science, the data, and the humanistic approach that we need to have to be able to actually get something done. So we really, really appreciate that from our perspective, and especially as we're looking, my children, Victoria's generation. I actually feel like we're in good hands, sitting next to Victoria for all these episodes and the work that she's doing, and even just my children's outlook on the environment is completely different than my millennial generation and the boomer generation. And so, yeah, we're hopeful. All right. Man, it's always never enough time for this video cast portion. It has to be. It has to be. We have no other choice. We're out of time. So, and we are out of time for this show as well. So, appreciate all the insights. Too little, too late, but we still have optimism. We still have an impact that we can make today, tomorrow, and for the future. So we really appreciate this conversation. Again, as always, we're going to stay on. We're going to learn a little bit more. We're going to dig into the science a little bit more. This is a very human conversation, and we want it to be such. But we want to learn a little bit more about some of the insights that we can glean from this conversation. So as always, go to tangeliclife.org, check out the full blog post. You'll be able to learn even more. That was it for this episode. We really appreciate your time. This is great.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much. I love the discussion. I really loved it.
Let's talk power, let's talk change. From rural lights to brighter days. Equity rising, voices strong. We're building tomorrow where we all belong. Tangelic Talks, energy, equity, pride. Empowering the world, side by side. A spark becomes a fire, a vision that's true. Together we rise, it starts with you.